So yeah, how many of y'all expected Game 2 of the finals to go the way it did? Um, to be honest, like I didn't think it was gonna go this way. The Warriors being up 30 at one point and then winning the game by 20. I thought the Warriors were gonna win by 10. It was probably a higher scoring affair, but I was wrong in that case, and I'm kind of happy I'm wrong. As I look at this game, I think the Warriors really are figuring out what to do. While you can kind of see the inexperience a little bit by Boston. But yeah, this is the post-game review of Game 2 of the Warriors versus the Celtics. I want to just break down each quarter and things I saw that I think are very important in this game for the first quarter, right? I think the Warriors had a slow start. I think they had too many turnovers. Overall, I thought their execution wasn't great. They had too many missed shots, especially layups, which I thought was you can't miss some of those. And then they had defensive matchups where I saw Curry or another small guard on Tatum multiple times. You can chalk that up to Celtics possibly, matching up that way through play calling, which is very likely that what happened. But many times we've seen the Warriors able to switch and get out of that. Other times they just let Curry play it. Got a little lucky in that case with Tatum playing a little sluggish. But yeah, outside of that, there were some really good things that I saw in the first quarter from the Warriors. One, they forced fouls in transition, were able to get in the bonus. Two, they had a really good start from Curry. Obviously not as good as last games, but you can't expect that 2 games in a row. But shoot, if he can do this every game in the series, they're going to have a really good start in the first 2 quarters. And I can't see Boston being able to keep up with that and be as consistent if Curry can do it every single game. And even with all that bad stuff, turnovers and poor execution, bad one-on-one defense, things of that nature, they still had the lead in the first quarter, which was a really bad sign for Boston. In games like this where you see Warriors making mistakes, you definitely should take advantage of that and at least be up by 5 or 6. Don't be down. On the Celtics side of things in the first quarter, I thought they were physical and chippy to start, but they had a sluggish start by Tatum. This is his second game in the series, so I don't expect Tatum to be, very great right now, but this is too sluggish for him to be going against the Warriors. There was too many transition fouls. They were giving up way too many fouls. Tatum had 2 in the first. I think, if I'm right, Brown might have 2. I don't have a stat for that right this second, but I can't remember. But man, way too many transition fouls and give fouls. Sometimes you just got to play defense. There was once where Tatum was matched up on Curry one-on-one. Tatum doesn't need the foul there. Just play one-on-one. There's 2-on-2 going down court. You have help coming. It just doesn't make sense. But they're so used to taking those fouls and setting back up in half court, where many teams aren't as good in half court. That's not the case for the Warriors on a nightly basis. They're just as good in half court as transition. So yeah, I think that definitely played a role in that. There was a lack of ball movement offensively. They were winning a lot of their matchups one-on-one, especially Brown. He was hot in the first quarter. And that's the next point, they had a great start with Brown. Essentially the only one in the first quarter. I know Derek White played better in that second, but Brown was really, really good in that first, which essentially kept them in it. On the second quarter alone, I think Klay Thompson being ice cold is literally the only issue I think the Warriors had in that second quarter. The man had 2 points and was 1-8 from the field. As much as I think, you have to get him shots. But in many ways, you could argue that was hurting them too. They had a really good run in the beginning of the second, which then later on Boston obviously answered. Curry, was heating up, man. His playmaking and his shot making was extremely good. He had 15 points, went 5 of 12 on 42% from the field, and had 4 assists. He had a +3 plus minus, which if you put weight into that stat, but really, really good. Obviously, again, not as good as his last game, but overall kept his team ahead because of his play. They had great ball movement and play calling. I think the play calling was a big point of that. It's just their system is hard to stop, man. It's too much movement. And as good as Boston is defensively, their biggest strength defensively is one-on-one matchups. They can match up with anyone one-on-one. But as soon as you start moving around, it makes you tired. It's just a different overall feel offensively. The Warriors had 15 assists to 5 turnovers, which, that's great turnover or assist to turnover ratio as a team, like what can you expect? On the Celtics side in the second quarter, Brown, he had cooled off very much so. He only had 15 points for 4-12, 33% from the field, which doesn't sound horrible, but the efficiency definitely needs to, pick up, especially because Tatum, which he caught fire. But the ball movement on the Celtics weren't good. Shot selection falling off. I think they had too many times where they're playing ISO ball. They weren't assisting enough. They had times where, usually you see them drive and kick. And what kept them in the game was because they were driving and kicking. But they had too many turnovers. 12 assists to 11 turnovers. A lower assists and more turnovers with a worse ratio. It's just not a way to stay in the game, especially when the Warriors want you to play that isolation ball because they want to blitz you. They want to get the ball out your hand, get it to other shooters, want you to make mistakes, in which that will happen. Overall, though, I thought they had good effort, which kept them in the game. They were playing hard. Even when most of the stats were saying, you're about to lose this game by 10, they were still in the game at half by a few points. It was really good. Again, chippy physical play. And I think they had a good response to the Warriors run. When the Warriors went on that run in the beginning of the second quarter, I thought, shoot, they're going to be down by 10, 12. But nah, by the time half came, they were right there with them. Great three-point shooting is, I think, what kept them there. All those turnovers really got neutralized when you're shooting as great as they were. They were shooting 52% from three-point as a team. They were 10 of 19. That's great. And Tatum, his first quarter, forgettable. But that second quarter, the man was absolutely on fire. I thought he was going to drop 40 the way he was playing. He had 21 points, went 7 of 16, which is, 7 of 16 not great, but you can't expect him to be extremely efficient when that first quarter really nagged him down. But man, Tatum played absolutely stellar. So yeah, you go to the third quarter, right? And I think this is where everyone who watched the game was like, yeah, the Warriors were on a run. They had a good start by the Warriors. They went on a run. I charted they went on a 7-0 run, but I think it was 11-0. But it didn't matter because they went on 2 runs in the third quarter, which led them to just absolutely annihilating the Boston Celtics. Both their runs were just great possessions on offense and filled by great defensive possessions, turnovers that they created, forced hard shot selection. Boston just didn't adapt offensively, and the Warriors did. It's not much to be said. I think Thompson played a tad better, but man, he didn't play good enough in this game at any point for me to be very confident for him to go into game 3, especially when he's going to Boston. They forced fouls, got in bonus when they didn't shoot threes. They were able to get into the paint and force fouls, which helps a lot. Is a chess move type of thing where Boston now can't play as physical because they're already in bonus. And Curry was cooking. Who didn't know? Curry put up 14 points in just the third. I mean, essentially, he put the nail in the coffin, and the coffin was still being built. At the end of the day, great job by Golden State. I mean, they got the crowd into it. Poole's third quarter shot. They outscored Celtics 35-14, which if you're the Celtics, you've been outscored in the third multiple times and you've come back from it. I did expect the Celtics to make a little run in the fourth, which they just didn't. And I give that all to the Warriors. They did an amazing job just not allowing that to happen. The Celtics in the third quarter offensively were extremely flat. By the time the third quarter ended, they had 16 points on 16 turnovers. 16 assists on 16 turnovers at the end of the third quarter. There was too many defensive lapses. The Warriors are getting way too many offensive rebounds and just getting good shots off of them. Even if they didn't hit them, with those many attempts, you expect to beat the Warriors. It's just, man. And I get it. Maybe they were trying to run some transition to play some faster offense. Essentially just didn't work. There was way too many fouls. They were in the bonus. I think they put the Warriors in the bonus. It was 7 minutes in the third. Jesus, you can't play physical when every time you touch someone, you're going to get a foul, right? But it's even worse when that's your whole defensive identity. While the Warriors could play physical, they almost usually match teams' physicality. The Boston Celtics identity is to play physical. At the end of the day, that's what they're known to do. They didn't have enough offensive transition. They couldn't get enough transition buckets. And so when they got put in those, obviously, half-court play calls and settings and things like that in their sets, they weren't efficient enough, and they were pretty much playing to the Warriors' hand. So, kudos to the Warriors for that. Essentially, Tatum was really cold. I won't even say that. Tatum just wasn't aggressive in the beginning of the third, and my only good thing I put on my notes was that Tatum became a tad more aggressive at the end of the third, but like too little too late at that point. So like when the fourth quarter came, the Warriors created a lot of good shot selections, created a lot of offense early in the fourth quarter by turnovers, rebounds, and ball movement and things of the nature. They were doing great in the third. They just continued that pace. They had too many fouls in the mid to late fourth. You know, Boston, similar to the Warriors, were in the bonus around 7 minutes, 6:30-ish. At that point, I'm not going to lie, I looked down randomly and saw them in the bonus, and I said, like, what better can they do? But yeah, they were in the bonus by then. And Clay was as cold as the Arctic. Like, Jesus Christ, someone please, for the love of God, get Clay something icy hot. I don't know. It wasn't even like the play calls weren't getting him open. He was curling off screens. He was getting into post-ups with mismatches. He just could not hit anything. And like I said, I don't expect Clay to play game 3 at the level he played this game, where it was just absolutely horrible. But I do expect him to. I don't expect him to be good in game 3. Like average at best. I just don't know. Clay hasn't been good these last 2 games, and it's not like he's not getting good shot selection. He's getting shot selection where we've seen him hit 40 off of before, or at least an efficient 20, but he's not even doing that. But for the Celtics, like, it really wasn't much good at all for them. I mean, you could expect it. After that third, they start benching players, garbage time, things like that. Players just playing in garbage time. They continued to turn the ball way too much. I mean, they lacked in everything: effort, physicality, urgency, intensity, name it. They just had nothing. They were dead flat. I mean, worse than my tires. It's pretty bad. Their garbage time shot selection, I will say, from their bench was a tad better, but it's not hard to be a tad better when your shot selection third was like absolutely horrible. And I'm not saying they weren't hitting or getting some good shots, but overall there was a lot of isolation ball, and while there were some good kickouts, they weren't hitting those shots. So you probably want to adapt, but they just didn't. I honestly think we could probably see the same offense in game 3 from the Celtics, and it probably would be better, because I don't see them having 2 bad games from their role players. A bad game from their role players again like they did today. Essentially, in conclusion, the Warriors did what they should have did last game and went on a complete run. They didn't essentially just take 3 quarters and took the fourth off. They didn't let Boston get hot when the fourth came. They said, you know what, we're going to take the whole game. We even saw Jordan Poole and Klay Thompson stay in for a good part of the fourth, which, I mean, it didn't really matter if Klay stayed in the way he was shooting, but obviously they kept Klay in because, hey, they were trying to get him warm and get him ready for game 3, which didn't happen. Klay just wasn't good. Like I said before, don't think Klay's going to be horrible like he was today, but he was probably going to be average at least. I think he has to warm up. Game 2 was competitive, but that third separated them. If you're Boston, it's really hard to say what can you do. The Warriors were just creating a lot of offense from their defensive intensity. I think you have to slow down. I think that too many turnovers, you have to look in a different direction offensively. You're a very versatile team. You can only be versatile when you can actually put the ball on the floor and actually play your half-court set. Too many times you try to run transition because your half-court set wasn't doing good, and it turned around and bit you in the butt because the Warriors were able to get offensive rebounds pretty often and just out-hustle you. Even when Curry didn't light up the first half, as he did in game 1, he was still, at any given moment, amazing, essentially. Like, I think Curry played great. He shot 29 points on 9 for 21 from the field, 43% from the field, 4 assists, 3 steals. I mean, his plus minus 24. I mean, like, what can you say? Oh, Curry didn't do great as a field goal percentage. Well, that's why we have the plus minus, because while he didn't shoot good field goal wise, no one did on the Celtics side, so it really didn't matter. Plus, you can argue, hey, he didn't have any more assists. It didn't really matter. They had changed the way they were playing him. He got hot in that third, so they were like, you know what, Curry, we don't even need you to run off the pick and roll. We're going to run you off some screens or get you your shot, give you some isolation, but like anything he wanted, he got. Overall, not much to say about the Warriors. Great ball movement, great overall offensive play, great defense, at least for like 3 quarters, 3.5, because the fourth quarter, while the Celtics got it a little going, like, man, the Warriors had already took the game away. They had 25 assists to 12 turnovers. They were able to move the ball around. That was essentially the difference from the Warriors and the Celtics. And, while the Warriors and the Celtics are like polar opposite in this game, there were some good things by Boston. They started the game off very competitive. They had great physicality, urgency in that first half. Even when they weren't doing everything right, they were playing like they didn't care. And I think in that second half, I don't know what happened, but it definitely hurt them. Jaylen Brown became way too passive and got cold in that second half. He put up 17 points on 5 of 17 from shooting, 29% from the field in the game. And that's bad by itself, but it becomes horrific when you start to look at what he did just in the second half alone. Brown only had 2 points and he only attempted 5 shots in that second half. We've crucified Harden for taking just scoring 2 points or taking 2 shots. Like, it's the finals and you're playing a team that is highly favored because of their experience and overall scoring. You can't have games like this, and I do think this is overall going to hurt them. Besides obviously Brown, bad play. Tatum was productive, but we know what beats productivity is inefficiency, and it's the same thing the Warriors did to Luka. Made him extremely inefficient, made him turn over the ball, and they did the same thing to Tatum. That ultimately neutralized his play. He did great when it came to overall scoring, right? 28 points a game, but he shot 8 of 19, which is 42%, which isn't absolutely horrible, but when there's no other running mate with you, it's pretty bad because it's just you. But his plus minus being negative 36, that's crazy bad. And I think it was really Steve Kerr's just masterful understanding of the game, right? Anytime Tatum was on that court, you saw some other scorers, some defenders. I'm pretty sure I saw Andrew Wiggins on him pretty often. They consistently had him in that second half guarded by someone more of his size, and which led to him in that second half only having 7 points on 3 extra shot attempts in that second half. Again, you got to be more aggressive. I get that he didn't get to play much in that fourth, but you got to play more aggressive in that third, especially when you see your team essentially sinking and drowning, and you got to be the life jacket in that case, which at the end of the day, he was more like a boulder. The Warriors had an efficient game. They shot 45 field goal percentage, while Boston essentially, no need to say it, but they were extremely inefficient. They shot 37% from the field, while they both actually shot 15 from 37, which is 40% from 3-point percentage. Is it's crazy. It shows, one, that Boston, who started the first half off using the 3-point shot as a way to stay in the game and, neutralize their bad play overall, which, I take that back, neutralize their bad offensive mistakes, just couldn't do in that second half. They went 5-18 in that second half on 28% from 3. Like, as a team, that's just bad. I just can't expect them to do that again. They're not a bad 3-point shooting team at all. And I honestly expected them to continue their hot shooting in that first half. Maybe a tad bit lower, but overall, this was just too much. And, without help from Al Horford, Marcus Smart, and Derek White, which, like, last game, in game 1, those 3 came up big, right? Marcus Smart dropped 18, played great defense. Good defense, at least on Curry in that second half. Al Horford, he dropped 26? On 9 to 12 shooting. That's great. 21 for Derek White. Like, they were efficient. The difference in that first game is they shot 50% in that first game, but they shoot 37% in this. That's just bad. And this is going to lead me to what I predict for the rest of this series. I think this is going to 6 games, and I gotta say this. I think Boston is going to take a 2-win lead. I think Boston is going to play very good in the next game. Brown and Tatum are going to play good together in game 3. The game 4, Warriors are going to respond. They've always been able to respond. We might even see another game where they beat them in the third quarter. Game 5, I'll be very honest. I think Warriors are, like I said, I think it's going to 6 games. So obviously, I don't see Boston winning more than 2 games. So obviously, game 4 and game 4 they win. Game 5 they lose. Game 6 they win. Actually, I think I got the math wrong. It would be 2-1 Boston if they win game 3. So obviously, I think that it'll go 2-2, go to the Warriors in game 4, and then obviously they win 5 and 6. That's what I got wrong. I think they can have great games, but the Warriors have been able to have great games beside other teams. I mean, look at Luka. He's had some great games against the Warriors, and that only led to one win. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they're, as a combination, that's more help than Luka had, but not enough against the experienced Steve Kerr team. I have Golden State winning this in 6. I would have said Golden State in 7 if they won game 2 here. I'm very confident in Golden State's ability. I think that everyone who's watching this probably is too. So that's it for this episode. I hope y'all enjoyed my review of this game. I'm going to try to keep doing reviews. I can't promise that I can do review game 3. I'm obviously going to try to review game 7 or 6 or whatever game Boston's on the bridge of elimination for. And yeah, if you don't like my predictions, tell me why in the comments, man. I'm really open to debate here. I really think, as much as I like Boston and I think they're great and I wouldn't mind at all. I mean, I really hope they win a ring. I'm objective and I can't see them beating the Warriors. So yeah, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe.